about 14 years ago, we met and we made a record for the first time. 14 years ago, God.
Elvis Presley was the king of music, loved and recognized by millions around the world. But in 1976, away from the bright lights and crowds, he carried a secret burden. He was tired, depressed, and trapped inside the face everyone expected him to wear. One day, he walked into a quiet surgeon's office with a request no one would imagine. He did not want to look younger or better. He wanted to look like someone else. Why would the king of rock and roll ask for that? The silent doctor. The man in the white coat had always been one of few words. Even when he was young, there was nothing loud about him. People noticed him not because he demanded attention. Instead, they noticed how attentive he was. He listened closely, remembered details. He believed that a face was not just skin and bone, but a part of a person with a story. As the years passed, his hair turned gray and age set in. He was now an old man, retired and resting. These days of his life were quiet, yet his mind often traveled back through time, stopping at moments and experiences that had shaped him. Among all his memories, there was one that stood out, one that told a hidden story the world deserved to hear. It was an encounter with a star. It was not full of light or color. It was quiet, like him, and for decades, he had kept it to himself. Throughout his career, the doctor had been known for restraint. He never chased fame. He never chased wealthy patients. His name spread through trust rather than noise. When people came to him, it was often after accidents or injuries. His daily routine were broken jaws, damaged skin, and faces changed by pain. He worked patiently, never rushing, never promising miracles. His goal was simple: help people feel whole again without erasing who they were. In the mid-1970s, the doctor was in the strongest years of his career. Other surgeons respected him. Nurses trusted him. Patients felt safe around him. He focused on reconstructive and subtle cosmetic work, avoiding dramatic changes. He believed that medicine should heal and give comfort. His office reflected this belief, with its calm walls, soft lights, and easy space. One afternoon, in 1976, a phone call arrived. It struck him because it did not sound like any other. The voice on the line was careful and slow. It did not explain much, just asked whether the doctor would consider seeing a patient with a celebrity face. No name was given, nor was the height of the patient's fame mentioned. The doctor did not respond immediately. First off, he asked gentle questions like if the patient was healthy enough for any procedure. He also asked about privacy requirements, ethical lines, and pressure. The caller answered each question calmly, slowly communicating the delicate nature of the job at hand. When the call ended, the doctor remained seated for a long moment. He understood what this request might mean. A famous face brought many risks. Still, something about the call felt different. There was no arrogance in it. It simply felt like a person asking for help, not a star chasing change. What did he do? He agreed to the meeting. As the appointment approached, the doctor prepared himself the same way he always did. He reviewed his principles. It was nothing new, business as usual. Even a celebrity patient didn't change the protocol. Every patient deserved honesty. Every request deserved careful thought. No face was more important than another. No name changed the rules of medicine. At that moment, the doctor did not know how deeply this meeting would mark him. He did not know that it would follow him into old age. All he knew was that someone, whose face belonged to the world, was in need of his expertise. He had spent his life protecting the unseen parts of people, so he was ready to offer the one thing he had always given best. When stars grow dim. By 1976, Elvis Presley was tired. This fatigue wasn't something a nap would fix. It went deeper. His body was scarred with the weight of years spent performing, traveling, and pleasing others. His mind was heavy with thinking. He was no longer the young man who once moved with sharp energy and easy confidence. Time had changed him, and he felt every change deeply. Elvis had always been sensitive. Even in his strongest years, he cared deeply about how he looked and how people saw him. Fame had given him everything, yet it had also taken something away. By the mid-1970s, his health was failing. Doctors monitored him closely. He struggled with insomnia and relied on prescribed medication to function. His weight went up and down. His face looked puffy, exhausted, and worst of all, aged. Elvis grew private. The man who once enjoyed crowds now spent long hours alone. His world had grown smaller. Ultifa nights were quiet but restless, with no sleep and definitely no comfort. In those moments, the past came to mind as fleeting comfort. Photographs from the 1950s showed the star called Elvis, handsome and young, with wild eyes and restless energy. The Elvis everyone knew was a rebel with a guitar and a dangerous smile. Other pictures from the early 1960s showed him polished-looking, calm, and confident. Then there was the mirror. Looking into it, the man staring back at him felt unfamiliar. His eyes still carried kindness, but they were heavy. His face no longer matched the pictures that lived in the minds of millions. Every wrinkle and every change reminded him cruelly of what the world expected him to be, everything he wasn't anymore. Elvis did not hate aging. What troubled him was what aging meant for his identity. His face had become a symbol long before he had a choice. It represented youth, rebellion, romance, and perfection. Even as his body struggled, the image remained frozen for others. Fans wanted the past. Promoters sold the past. The world held on to a face that no longer belonged to the present. This pressured him in his career. He was not chasing youth, nor did he want to look better than he was. He just wanted space, distance, and relief from the face that carried too many demands. Biographers later described this period as one of deep insecurity. Elvis questioned his worth outside of performance. He worried about disappointing people simply by existing as he was. The mirror became less about appearance and more about identity. Who was he allowed to be if he no longer matched the image that made him famous? Despite everything, Elvis remained polite and thoughtful. He treated people with kindness. Those close to him noticed how gentle he could be, even as he struggled. He did not complain loudly. His fears stayed mostly inside. The public saw costumes and concerts. They did not see the quiet moments alone. By 1976, Elvis understood something painful. His face no longer belonged to him alone. It belonged to memory and expectation, to an idea larger than any human could carry. That realization weighed on him more than the physical changes ever could. When he thought about change, it was not driven by vanity. It was driven by survival. He wanted room to breathe, to exist without being measured against a younger version of himself. He wanted a face that felt like his own again, even if only slightly. This internal struggle shaped many of his choices during that final year. He grew careful and trusted fewer people. He searched quietly for solutions that would not turn into spectacle. Fame had taught him that loud answers often cause more harm than peace. Elvis Presley was not chasing perfection anymore. He only wanted a break from reality. He was a man standing between who he had been and who he was allowed to become. Days passed in pain and silence, days that reminded him that the world loved an image, days he simply wanted to be human again. A careful request. On the day of the meeting, the setting was deliberately plain. It was not a noisy hospital filled with nosy staff. It was a private medical space chosen for discretion. The room was clean and quiet. The air carried the faint smell of disinfectant. Nothing in the space suggested fame or importance. That was intentional. Elvis Presley arrived with no crowds, zero flashing lights and sequins. He greeted the surgeon with politeness and respect. His posture was careful, almost guarded. The surgeon noticed immediately that Elvis was tired. There was no other word to describe the drawn look of burnout and stress. His movements were heavy, and his eyes showed strain. Despite all this, the star didn't lose his good demeanor. The meeting began with a review of facts. They talked about Elvis's health history in detail. His ongoing medical issues were discussed carefully. His struggle with sleep was addressed. The surgeon asked about medications, dosage, and side effects. Weight changes were noted, along with stress levels and exhaustion. Everything was handled professionally, without judgment. Elvis answered calmly. He did not exaggerate or hide. He seemed relieved to speak in a space where he was not expected to perform. This was not a stage or a planned performance. It was a visit to the doctors. As the discussion continued, the surgeon remained focused on safety. His questions were thorough. He explained risks where necessary. He listened closely. He watched Elvis's body language as much as his words. Years of experience had taught him that silence often revealed more than speech. Then the conversation shifted. Elvis explained that his concern was not about improvement. He was not asking to look younger. He was not chasing perfection. What he wanted was distance. distance from the face that carried too many expectations. He did not want to erase himself, but he wanted relief from being recognized as a symbol rather than a person. The request was delivered without drama. There was no desperation in his tone. It was calm and measured. That calmness is what stayed with the surgeon for years. The request was unsettling not because it was extreme, but because it was thoughtful. Elvis made it clear that he understood limits. He was not asking for something reckless. He wanted to know what could be done safely, if anything, to soften recognition. Not to become someone new, but to feel less trapped inside an image that no longer fit his life. The surgeon listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He did not react quickly. Inside, he understood the weight of what he was hearing. He was listening to a struggling man trying to keep a piece of his past, not for himself, but for the sake of his fans. The room remained quiet after the explanation. It was a thoughtful kind of silence. The surgeon knew this moment would stay with him. He had met many patients with pain, but this was different. This was a man burdened by visibility itself. The surgeon also knew that whatever came next would require careful judgment. Medicine had rules, but ethics had deeper ones. The meeting ended without urgency. No decisions were rushed, nor were promises made. Both men stood and parted politely, and Elvis left the same way he arrived. The surgeon remained alone in the silence, pondering on the encounter he had been privileged to have. It was a meeting he would never forget. A moment that told the truth that stars were just as human as everyone else, trapped in an ageless fame. Elvis understood that people loved him. He never doubted that. What hurt was being loved for something he could no longer fully give. His body had changed, his health was receding, his energy had shorted out, yet the expectations stayed the same. The face the world wanted from him did not allow him to rest or age or simply exist. He did not describe this with anger. There was no bitterness in his words, only exhaustion. He had spent years trying to meet expectations that no longer fit his life. Over time, that effort had worn him down. The image of Elvis Presley had grown larger than the man himself. That separation made him feel trapped inside his own face. Elvis explained how difficult it was to move through the world unnoticed. Even small moments felt exposed. A face that once opened doors now closed them. It limited where he could go, how he could live, and how he could be seen. He wanted the freedom to exist without constant recognition, even if only slightly. Elvis also showed responsibility. He spoke openly about his health struggles. He acknowledged the medications he depended on. He understood that surgery carried risks, especially for someone in his condition. He did not ask for anything reckless. He wanted to know what was possible within safe limits. As he spoke, it became clear that this was not vanity at all. It was only the exhaustion of carrying a role that never ended, nor did it consider the human tendency of illness, age, or emotion. The world needed to realize that celebrities were humans too. They could not live forever, neither did they own the hourglass of their existence. They burned and faded out, like stars, when skill met responsibility. The surgeon had always believed that a steady mind mattered more than clever hands. His personality was shaped by discipline and restraint. He was not a man who rushed toward possibility just because it existed. Years of practice had taught him that saying no was sometimes the most important skill a doctor could have. Healing was not only about what could be done, but about what should never be done. Back in the hospital, as he sat across from Elvis Presley, the surgeon had felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle in. He had listened carefully to everything Elvis explained. He understood the exhaustion, the pressure, the desire for distance from a face that no longer felt like home. None of it sounded foolish. None of it sounded vain. Still, understanding a feeling did not mean agreeing with its solution, and so the surgeon returned to what he knew best. The facts of his profession. He explained the medical risks calmly and clearly. Elvis's health was already fragile. His body was under strain from years of poor sleep and heavy schedules. The medications he depended on affected healing, blood pressure, and response to anesthesia. Surgery, even subtle surgery, placed stress on the body. In someone already struggling, that stress could become dangerous. Beyond the physical risks, the surgeon spoke about something harder to measure, the fragile concept of identity. A face carried more than features. It carried memory, recognition, and emotional grounding. Altering a face that had become deeply tied to a person's sense of self could cause confusion and distress, especially for someone whose identity had already been shaped by public attention. the surgeon understood that Elvis wanted relief, but he also knew that surgery could not promise peace. Anonymity was not something a scalpel could provide. Surgery could change lines and contours, but it could not erase recognition. People who knew Elvis would still see him. The world would still compare. Instead of freedom, the result could be deeper frustration, a feeling of being altered but not released. The surgeon made it clear that his concern was not about fame. It was about protection. Medicine had limits for a reason. Crossing those limits, even with good intentions, could cause harm that no procedure could undo. Throughout the explanation, Elvis remained quiet. He listened closely. His posture did not stiffen. His expression did not change with anger or disappointment. There was no argument, no attempt to convince. That silence told the surgeon everything he needed to know. Elvis was not sitting in his office chasing a fantasy. He was, in fact, weighing reality. The surgeon chose his final words carefully. He did not shame the request. He did not dismiss the feeling behind it. He acknowledged the pain of carrying an image that no longer fit. He explained that sometimes the kindest answer was refusal, not because the desire was wrong, but because the cost was too high. The decision was clear. Elvis accepted it without protest. He didn't put up a protest or appear frustrated. He didn't take to dramatic outbursts or raise his voice. He understood. His request had been listened to, considered, and respectfully dismissed. The meeting ended calmly. Both men stood. They exchanged polite goodbyes, and that was it. No one lost his temper or gave a bad eye. They were just two adults recognizing the limits of what could be done. After Elvis left, the surgeon remembered that he had reviewed his notes before closing the file. He knew he had made the right choice, even though it was not the easiest one. Turning away work was never difficult for him, but turning away a human need always felt heavy. This moment stayed with him because it tested everything he believed about medicine. It was a reminder that doctors did not only treat bodies, they protected lives, identities, and futures, even when that meant refusing a request that came from pain. Years later, the surgeon would still think of that meeting. He would remember it not as a failure, but as an example of integrity. It was a moment when skill stepped aside for responsibility. It was a time when ethics mattered more than possibility. In that quiet refusal, the surgeon had done what he believed was right. He had protected a man who already carried too much, and sometimes that was the most human act medicine could offer. Two roads to take. Elvis Presley was a gentleman beneath the fame. By the final year of his life, his personality had become soft and inward. He was thoughtful, polite, and deeply tired. He still cared about people, but he no longer chased the world the way he once had. Time had slowed him down. His kindness remained, yet his energy was fading. He carried himself like someone who had given much and had little left to give. After the private meeting ended, Elvis returned to his life without any visible change. There was no sudden shift, no dramatic decision. The days continued the way they already had. He performed when scheduled. He traveled when required. He spent long hours alone when the noise faded. Nothing suggested that he sought another doctor or tried again elsewhere. Records from the time show no surgical plans, no recovery periods, no interruptions that would suggest cosmetic procedures. His path remained the same. Elvis continued performing through exhaustion. Each show took more from him than the last. His body struggled to keep up with expectations that never slowed. Sleep remained difficult. His health continued to decline. Those close to him noticed how isolated he had become. Fame surrounded him, yet loneliness sat quietly at his side. Away from the stage, Elvis withdrew further into privacy. He spent more time indoors. The outside world felt heavy. The face that followed him everywhere still belonged to others as much as to himself. The meeting with the surgeon did not solve this, but it may have clarified something. Some things could not be changed without causing harm. That truth settled into him quietly. While Elvis moved through his final months, the surgeon returned to his own life. His personality was steady and controlled, just as it had always been. He resumed his work with focus and discipline. Patients came and went, faces were repaired, and lives were helped in small, meaningful ways. Nothing about his routine revealed that he carried a rare memory. He spoke to no one about the meeting. Silence was not difficult for him. It was familiar. Confidentiality had guided his career, and it continued to guide him now. The meeting became something he held privately, not as a secret, but as a responsibility. In August 1977, the news came out. Elvis Presley was gone. The surgeon learned of his death the same way most people did, through ordinary channels like a headline or a brief report on the radio. The star's life had been reduced to a date and a name. The world reacted loudly. Grief spread quickly. Memories poured out. The image of Elvis froze once again, this time forever. For the surgeon, the news carried a deeper weight. He thought back to the calm meeting. He remembered the tired man who wanted distance from his own reflection. In that moment, something became clear. Elvis had not been asking for change alone. He had been preparing to let go. The surgeon realized that the request had come from a place of quiet understanding. Elvis knew his body was failing. He knew time was closing in. The desire to step away from an image was not about hiding. It was about release, a soft goodbye to a version of himself that had been carried for too long. As the world mourned the legend, the surgeon mourned the man. He didn't do it publicly or loudly, just privately, with respect. He understood that Elvis had been searching for peace, not transformation. The refusal had not denied him that peace. It had protected him from further strain. Years passed. Elvis became history. His image grew even larger. Songs lived on. Stories multiplied. The surgeon aged quietly, still carrying the memory without sharing it. It was not regret that stayed with him. It was understanding. Two lives had crossed briefly and then moved apart. One ended too soon. The other continued, shaped by a moment of ethical choice. The meeting had no visible impact on history, yet it mattered deeply to those who lived it. Elvis Presley had walked away from that quiet room and continued toward his final chapter. The surgeon had returned to his work, holding silence as carefully as he held his tools. Both men moved forward, changed in ways no one else could see. Sometimes, that is how the most meaningful moments pass, quietly, without witnesses or pictures. These moments leave behind only understanding and consequence. They go with us wherever we go, like a quiet shadow, reminding us of the human moments that live forever. The moment silence spoke. The surgeon was now an old man, shaped by time and patience. His personality had not changed much over the years. He was still careful with words, still slow to draw attention to himself. Even now, he believed that the best work often happened quietly. His life had been built on trust, and trust had always required restraint. For decades, he had carried one memory that never faded. It was not dramatic. It did not involve fame or reward. It involved responsibility. He had chosen silence when silence mattered most. He had watched the world turn a man into a symbol, and he had said nothing. Not because he lacked compassion, but because he believed discretion was part of his duty. Time, however, has a way of changing the weight of silence. As years passed, the urgency to protect privacy slowly softened. Elvis Presley had become history. His image had grown larger than life, repeated endlessly through music, photographs, and memory. Yet in that growth, something human had been lost. The surgeon noticed how often Elvis was spoken of as a legend, an icon, or a mystery, and how rarely as a tired man trying to breathe under the weight of expectation. That was when the surgeon understood why it was finally time to speak. He did not come forward to create excitement. He did not seek recognition. He wanted to correct a misunderstanding that had lingered quietly over the years. Stories had formed without facts. Some imagined secret procedures. Others believed dramatic changes had been planned or carried out. None of that was true. The surgeon made it clear, calmly and without emotion, that Elvis Presley never underwent surgery. There were no procedures or hidden recovery. There was definitely no transformation. The meeting ended with a refusal, and that decision was respected. The truth did not need decoration. It only needed clarity. What mattered to the surgeon was not correcting rumors, but restoring balance to the story. The meeting had never been about changing a face. It had been about the cost of being endlessly seen. Elvis had lived in a world where recognition followed him everywhere. Even in private spaces, his image stood between him and rest. The surgeon wanted people to understand that Elvis was not trying to escape who he was. He was not rejecting his past. He was not chasing anonymity for its own sake. He was searching for peace in a life that rarely allowed it. By speaking now, the surgeon hoped to shift how the story was remembered, away from speculation and spectacle. He wanted the story to lean toward humanity. He reflected on how easy it is to forget that famous faces belong to real people. People who age and grow tired. people who feel pressure in places the public never sees. Elvis had given much of himself to the world, yet the world continued to ask for more. The face that made him loved also made him trapped. The surgeon believed this truth mattered, not because it changed history, but because it deepened understanding. Elvis Presley had not wanted to disappear. He had only wanted room to exist without being measured against memory. He wanted distance from an image that demanded endless performance. His request came from reflection, not weakness, from awareness, not vanity. The surgeon understood now that silence had served its purpose. But silence forever could turn into erasure. Speaking gently, carefully, and truthfully felt like the final responsibility he still owed. As he looked back, the surgeon did not feel regret. He felt peace. He had protected a patient when it mattered, and now, by sharing the truth, he was protecting the story itself. The real lesson was simple. Being known by everyone can be lonelier than being known by no one. Elvis lived inside a spotlight that never dimmed. His wish was not to vanish, but to rest. With that understanding, the surgeon allowed the memory to settle into the open, no longer hidden, no longer heavy. Just a quiet truth, placed gently where it belonged. There was no mystery or rumor. It was just a story of a man who gave the world everything he had, and in the end, only wanted peace.